All right, I believe we are live. So, good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here, and welcome to episode 4 of Planning Through a Pandemic, Business and Financial Education for Artists. Today, we're focusing on moving forward and next steps. I'm delighted that you're all here. And just as a context, Planning Through a Pandemic was put together in partnership with the Artist Relief Tree. Artist Relief Tree is an organization that was founded out of the COVID-19 crisis. When everything started shutting down, two brilliant individuals decided to take action, Morgan Brophy and Andrew Crooks. And they pulled together a ragtag team of incredibly motivated and gifted individuals to put together Artist Relief Tree, raising money so that they can give $250 solidarity grants to artists who need it from all over the world, of all different art mediums and backgrounds. And I know that they've been a lifeline for many people. It's been a privilege to be associated with them and helping them. And this series was put together as education for the individuals who have sought funding or received funding through the organization. But also, if you weren't on their list, the $5 fee that you've paid to be here is going entirely towards the Artist Relief Tree. And to date, we've already funded an additional scholarship for an individual, a grant for an artist. So by all of you being here and learning, we've been able to help one of our peers. So thank you. The recordings that we've done for the past sessions are still live, and they will be you will receive a recording if you were registered for them. But if you hadn't previously registered and you want to, we'll still be charging the $5 for that for people who weren't participating before. And all of that money will continue to go to the Artist Relief Tree. So hi, I'm Tiffany. By way of background, I'm just going to give you a snippet for those of us that weren't on previous sessions. I give much more of my origin story, if you will, in episode 1. But I am a singer, turned nonprofit executive, I went into management first, arts management. Then I was the executive director of a professional orchestra after a brief stint at a hedge fund. So if you're getting confused, right, that's been the path. So after nonprofit management for about 10 years, I served in a development capacity in that role. And really, after working for so long with high net worth individuals, I was inspired to create my own financial planning practice 5 years ago. So I am a licensed wealth advisor. I work at a fee-based registered investment advisory firm. Now, given my background in the arts, in arts management, and as a musician myself, I kept getting introduced to so many brilliant artists who might not have been the best fit for a fee-based planning model for what I'll say our Muggle clients definitely fit into. So I created in 2018, actually 2 years ago this coming Monday, so we're having a 2-year birthday party of some sort. So I created Virtuoso Advising for Artists, which is a business and financial education and coaching firm dedicated to serving artists wherever they are. So we do everything from one-on-one coaching, group coaching. I do a lot of group work with some opera houses across the country. So that's my background. I live in upstate New York, outside of Saratoga Springs. I have 2 young kiddos who keep me on my toes. And I'm really, really, really happy you're here. Just by way of a disclosure, the following content provided is through a Virtuoso Advising for Artists, which is, like I said, a business and consulting firm. None of the information contained herein is supposed to be derived or interpreted as personal financial planning or investment advice. So the opinions that I express are my own. They do not reflect my employer or my broker-dealer. All right, so what we're going to cover today is we're going to go through just a brief review of Planning Through a Pandemic. For those of you who are joining us on the last session, today we're all about what's next, moving forward. There's a little bit of homework as always and some Q&A. So by way of recap, on May 26th, we had the 3 keys every artist needs. Then we followed that with pandemic-proof finances. Just on Tuesday, we did bulletproof business practices. And today, we're all about moving forward. The 3 keys every artist needs, just to give some context here, is know where you're going through clearly defined goals. We cover that very heavily in episode 1 for Planning Through a Pandemic. Alleviate fear, stress, and worry with a concrete financial plan. That's episode 3, no, 2. And then begin thinking like an entrepreneur and build a targeted business strategy, which is what we went over on Tuesday. So a lot of the education that I've provided through this series is pieces that I do when I'm conducting large workshops, either for higher education institutions or young artist programs that I've worked with. And all of my best practices are informed from best practices from the industry, and then the work that I've been doing with artists one-on-one for the last three-ish years. Essentially what I was finding is that the challenges are always the same. And I think as creative professionals, sometimes we forget that we are business owners, and it's important to think like a business owner. I know a lot of artists that I've worked with are kind of scared of that, like, financial piece or the business piece. Like, I don't want to engage on that. I don't know enough about that. And you kind of put your head in the sand. And for the people that I've worked with who kind of take ownership, create a plan with intentionality that's aligned with their goals and values, they get a lot more out of it, and they see changes, and they feel like they're moving forward faster. So in a time of great crisis and need in our country and in our world, some people find it to be helpful to really hinge upon some of these concrete objectives for their business and their craft. So necessity, jumping into today, necessity is the mother of invention. So here we are, as I mentioned, at a unprecedented time in our world because of a global pandemic, and also at I hope to be a crossroads for our country with everything that's going on for social justice causes. And there's many artists that are faced with the crisis of not having work and impact to your work through maybe a year, maybe longer, due to the pandemic and everything that's come after that. So this is a time where we're probably going to see great creativity flourish from some people coming out of this. Everybody's going to be different at what they create in this time. But creative professionals are uniquely situated to solving problems creatively. So figuring out a creative way to solve needs or find solutions in this time is what I anticipate we will see from the arts community. But before we, sorry, that graphic did not come over clear enough, but you can make it out. Before we jump into the pieces of productivity, I do want to acknowledge the fact that with so much going on, before you can jump into a creative space, creation of your art, planning, finances, I think it's really important to identify and address where you are on the Maslow hierarchy chart. This is, just move my thing so I can see. With everything going on, I think it's important to check this out. So base needs, we would address a lot of this when I was teaching too for our students, figuring out the physiological needs. So making sure air, food, water, shelter. There's a great fraction of our community that does not have those things right now, and are even struggling with the second category of safety needs. And looking for personal security, employment, resources, health, and property. For those of you who are out of work, you're probably maybe even struggling in that arena. Before we can move up the chart to flourishing friendships, intimacy, family, or esteem or self-actualization, I think we need to make sure that we address those two things. And in a time of great crisis, when everything around us seems to be kind of spiraling, I think it's important to kind of focus on getting some control of these base areas first before we, again, move forward in whichever direction that we were in. So take a moment now or in the future and make sure that you're taking care of your base needs. Some people will jump in and start creative planning or doing all these things, and if you're acting from a place where you don't have that safety net or you don't have that security, you might find that you're a little bit unbalanced or unclear about things moving forward. So I do want to say, make sure that you're focusing on your base needs as we move forward through this really, really challenging time. So for many artists, and again, this isn't going to be universal, but we're going to talk about what artists need right now, or what do you need right now. There isn't a homework PDF for this. I would encourage you to write or journal or take notes any way that you can, because today is a little bit more freeform than the past structured content that we've had before. So what do we need? We need safety, money, and creative expression. That's a lot of what that's not everybody's needs. It's not everything, but that's a lot of what we've been focusing on. Safety, it doesn't go without saying, but take care of that first. If that's something that you're grappling with, reach out, find help, find resources. There are a lot of people who are reaching out to help creative professionals in this time if you find yourself in need of security and safety through that. Money, we're going to drill into that a little bit. But before we get there, we're going to talk a little bit about mindset and how productivity can increase happiness in challenging times. So there's been a ton of research about how productivity and happiness are linked, not only in the workplace, but as humans. And so because there has been a research correlation, I thought it might be helpful to provide a couple of tips for how people could use productivity, right? Use taking action to maybe move through the funk or the fear or whatever you're experiencing in this time of the pandemic. So make to-do lists. That is, I'm a list person. I'm a planner. If you see me looking to the sides, because my notes are over there, but the camera's here. So make to-do lists. Sometimes it's easy to get in our heads and kind of feel like you're spinning. I do this all the time. And sometimes the easiest thing to do is just do a data dump. Whether you're, honestly, this is me at night on my phone. I'm always just writing down like things that I just need to pull out of there, put on the shelf and address tomorrow. About to-do lists though, well, who doesn't love like checking off a to-do list, right? Like that's just very gratifying, or like crossing it out. But I would encourage you to don't try and tackle 12 things in one day. Maybe start with 3, maybe 5, whatever you feel like your capacity is. Everybody's coming from a different place. Everybody's needs are different and challenges are different. But creating a list allows you to visually engage and see what it is that's in your brain that you want to tackle if you're creating projects to move forward. Set goals. There's a reason that the entire first session was really around goal setting. I believe that being intentional with our actions and aligning them with what we ultimately want has great power. Having goals in a time of uncertainty also gives us something to look forward to, right? It gives us something we're not going to be in this for forever. We do know, and I think a great many of us assume that there's no going to the before, right? We're going to get through this. It's just going to be a very different reality in many instances, at least for the near future. But having set goals for your life, for your craft, for your career, personal, professional, financial, even if some of these things are on pause, even if there's no income coming in to serve your financial goals, knowing where you want to go helps get clarity on what maybe small things you can do today to move forward to that. Remove clutter. So as I was researching for today, I thought it was really interesting that this is one of the productivity suggestions or recommendations for people who are trying to use productivity and correlate it with increased happiness. I don't know about you, but I saw a ton of people like Marie Kondoing their entire life when the pandemic hit. Because with so much uncertainty, everyone's like, well, I cleaned the closet, or at least I have time to clean out the garage. Online garage sales exploded in my area. People, did Let It Go and all of these things all over the place. And there is something energetically associated with that. Having clutter has a negative aspect in our lives. And it's been researched, and scientists have proven that extra clutter in your life actually contributes to overstimulation of the nervous system, It causes all of your senses to work overtime, which can be exhausting. And I think for many of us who were feeling the exhaustion of the weight of the world and circumstances, extra clutter can only amplify that. I think that when people jumped into action mode and started cleaning and decluttering, I don't know that many people like stopped and said, there's a scientific correlation between what I'm feeling and what I want to achieve, but they just went with what was natural and what their instincts told them to do, which is clear house, get peace, get clarity, which I think says a lot. Extra clutter, refocus your attention on things that don't matter, right? It muddies the playing field. It creates a feelings of guilt and embarrassment, and it can be frustrating and make it really difficult for you to find relaxation. So if you're looking for one action to take, I recommend like tackling some small organizational project. Maybe you've always wanted to load your dishwasher differently, like teeny tiny. Maybe you need to tackle your linen closet and really fold your towels so that they look really pretty when you open that. Especially when you're stuck in the same space as people are still social distancing, I think it's important to remove the clutter in the world to create a harmonious atmosphere for you to be in and heal in and breathe in. Exercise. This goes without saying. I think for the first couple of weeks, and I'm pretty sure I'm not alone in this, I gained like the quarantine 10 or whatever, which was just a lot of stress eating. I didn't know that I was a stress eater. Thank you, pandemic, for teaching me that I'm a stress eater. I couldn't keep up the wine supply. So, so it was just a lot of stress eating and a lot of drinking. And finally, I think I personally came to the realization like 2 weeks in, I was like, oh no, this is not going to be good if this is long-term, when the projections started saying fall. So I put myself on a juice fast for a month, just to honestly lose the weight that then I could gain back, right? So I come out balanced. But exercising in this time and moving in this time and getting into your body, even if it's just taking a walk in the warmer weather that we're having now, is is important. Thanks, Jeremiah. Jeremiah doesn't want to talk about the quarantine 10 or whatever. So focus on what you can do. Even just doing some body weight exercises or some stretching or yoga or meditation or taekwondo, whatever. There's a ton of free things, but move your body. The other thing is exercise gives you endorphins, and endorphins make you happy, and happy people don't kill their husbands. They just don't. So who said that? Come on, put it in the chat.
Elle Woods.
Elle Woods, yes, Legally Blonde. Yes. So yes, get happy, get moving. The next is managing your time. So we've all heard the saying of, if you want something done, give to a busy person. When there's a lot to do, I don't know about you, but sometimes it's like when your plate is already full and you have to get something else in there, you complete the project in as much time as you have, right? You can get laser focused and just take care of things. And there's science behind that, of when you only have one thing to do, you can take all day to do it. When you create structure around your day and give yourself the 3 to-do list items that you want to get done, say maybe before 12, then it gets you up and moving in a productive manner to take care of that. So managing your time. The other thing is it's just as much as creating productivity and getting things done is important for happiness, also managing your downtime. If you need a day to stay in pajamas all day, stay in pajamas all day. But if the next day you want to move into some productivity mode, that's fine. But then maybe schedule some downtime after dinner or whatever, where you can relax and breathe. It's okay to relax. I'm not saying like get up and get moving all the time, but I think it's helpful to really almost like time block your day with what you want to get done. And planning ahead allows you to plan accordingly. And then find purpose in your productivity. So productivity for productivity's sake is fine, and certainly it is a tool that people use for their own mental well-being and happiness. But there's 1,000,000,005 different ways that you can get involved today, especially if you have time on your hands. You could go out and protest for Black Lives Matter, or even if it's just as much as like finding purpose, maybe you want to lift up a family member or a friend. You could send a card and take time to write the card or send a gift. Volunteer at food bank, handing out food for your local community. There's, other than just work, there's 1,000,005 ways that you can take action safely and lift others up, which in turn you'll probably find will lift yourself up. So these are some tips for creating happiness through productivity in a pandemic. Just saw there was a chat, so I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Lots of audio crap. Sorry, guys. My microphone won't work. I don't know. Is it still doing that? Check your mic. I don't know what that means. Hold on. While we're troubleshooting this, I'm just gonna pause for Zoom. Okay. So jumping into the money part of our base needs, I guess 3 steps that I would say are watch episode 3 of the Planning Through a Pandemic, where it's actually episode 2. 2 is the finances, 3 is business. Watch them both. Get acquainted with your numbers, especially if the finances are causing stress. It might be helpful to, once you know your numbers and you can tackle them, and they become not this monolithic, scary monkey on your back. I think a lot of times when people take and recognize their numbers, damn it, sorry. We're crackling again. There's nothing else, and the setup is no different than any other. All right, let me try this. I'm gonna try and plug in headphones. I've just never used them before. All right, resuming. All right, so watch episode 2 and 3. Get acquainted with your numbers by addressing them. Don't let them scare you. Don't just avoid them because they are scary. I think it's the more you know, the more you can get involved with them. And then make money, which again, everybody's going to probably laugh and be like, that's funny, right? Especially in a time when my industry is shut down. Sure, I'll just manifest it. And we'll drill into that. So something to note is that, I just want to know where, okay. Something to note is that 86% of the country is still employed. I think a lot of the unemployment numbers that we're seeing are being, unemployment is high. And there's a lot of fear around that. And especially if you're a creative professional and everybody you know is out of work because that's your community, because that's the space, because that's what you know. I sat with that early in the pandemic days when all of my clients lost their work or their gainful employment for the weeks and months ahead. And then I reframed it and I was like, okay, yeah, unemployment is at 14%, but that means that 86% of the country is still employed. So what does that mean? That means that even though your primary way of making money might not be possible, this is where we come back to being creative and thinking about ways to make money. So in preparation for today, I did some crowd surfing. I talked to some of my clients. I talked to some other arts communities that I've been engaged in to ask people what they're doing to make money right now. Unemployment insurance was a big response for US-based citizens. But here's some others. So find a way to teach your craft. Get really comfortable with Zoom. Teach your peers, right? Don't just think about teaching an audience or teaching students, but maybe you're really good at an aspect of your job that a colleague of yours might want to learn. Maybe your search engine optimization is on point and you can help others learn that part of their business. There are resources that you have in your experience that you would be able to teach not just other people in terms of an audience, but you can go laterally and teach your peers in your community and serve that way. sell your art through Etsy, or even if you're not a visual artist, maybe you're finding that one of the creative things to help you through this time is like necklace making, or, you know, those friendship bracelets with string, or like whatever. Do abstract painting, do whatever. If that's something that feeds your soul, sell, you know, create an Etsy shop. Church jobs, online cantering are still a thing. Online recordings for services are what several of my musicians are doing. Somebody mentioned that they were a blog writer. They just started a blog, and over time you can research how to monetize that through advertising, through clicks. There's a 5 billion different online YouTubes for how to monetize a blog. Ghostwriting. An individual said that she's ghostwriting for somebody else's blog who has content that they need created and they don't have time to do that. Be a dog walker. WAG and Rover Modern Singer magazine just put an article out, I think on Tuesday, about all of these things that out of work musicians can be doing during this time. She mentioned WAG and Rover as two resources because, again, 86% of the country is still employed. So, you know, people are still going to the office. What can you do to monetize that, really? You know, sell your services. You're a person who has time on their hands. You could serve in that capacity. A mother's helper. Here we are coming into summer season where people still have to work, but summer camps are closed. Reach out to those close to you who have children. They're probably not well. No, I'm just kidding. But ask how you can help them if they need help. And I know some of this is like, okay, but how do we do this safely in a pandemic? And I think with certain procedures, just like I'm in New York State and we're entering into phase 3 of reopening. Stores are opening, people are going back out in public. So I think there are ways that you can engage and interact with people socially, but still do it safely from your own protection and theirs. There are procedures that you can put in place to do that. Online tutoring. Again, school has been a complete shit show, for the end of the school year here in the US. And I think I know a lot of parents are stressed about what their kids did or did not master because they are not teachers and yet they've been homeschooling for the last 4 months. So if you find that you are really good at educating others, you might be able to reach out to your community and say, hey, I'm available for online tutoring. Let me know how I can help. Teaching English as a second language, there's programs out there for that. Virtual assistant work. I'm focusing on things that you could probably step into that may support working as a creative artist when things get back to normal. Having these revenue streams that you can dabble in and out of on your time, on your terms, is helpful to have. Awesome. Courtney put in the chat, care.com, babysitting, nannying, pet care, tutoring. That's a great resource. So virtual assistant work, again, similar to blog writing, ghostwriting, reaching out, helping people like me, right? People that have businesses, online businesses with anything that they need. They might not be necessarily advertising for virtual assistant work, but if there's a community that you follow or a website or a resource that you are interested in and that naturally aligns with your passions, reach out and say, hey, I have time on my hands and I'd love to support you and your community. How can I get involved? Odd jobs in your community. Whether it's just helping a neighbor with painting their house, painting their shutters, things that you can do that you don't need, a license necessarily for, but you can help out. Or even like at a local church or synagogue or something like that, ask if they have things that they're doing during this time to help out. Weed a garden for a neighbor. This is an idea that I had when I lived in the North Country of New York, outside of Potsdam. I didn't have any land to myself. I was a renter, but I had a friend who had an herb farm, and I was very interested in learning herbology. So I said, can I come out to the farm 3 days a week and weed and trade that and barter for lessons in how herbs work in herbology? And so that's what we did. And honestly, as a singer, I'd be out there for like 2 to 3 hours in the morning. I'd be vocalizing, I'd be singing my rep, I'd be working on my memorization, I'd be doing all of these things. They loved it. She's like, her and her kids left the windows open so that they could hear me sing in their field. So weed a garden for a neighbor. Barter or you can charge for that. You're providing a service where they might not have the same time. Sell unused stuff. Like I said, let it go. Etsy, Craigslist, Facebook, sell photographs. If you're a photographer, stock images, find ways to market and sell your stuff. Get a job at a grocery store. They're an essential business, and they're like other businesses that are still opening, looking to find people to restock shelves. Amazon driver for deliveries. Online game facilitator. Actually, I had a singer that I worked with who, I love this. He got paid to be a Dungeons and Dragon master online, and made really good money to be a dungeon master for online D&D games. So if that's a passion of yours, or I know some people play Twitch or whatever, recording themselves play video games. I mean, there's a way to make money. There's a way to make money. I have a cousin who's a sommelier. So she does wine parties, musicians that are playing for hospitals. Write a book, find royalties, put some of your services on Fiverr, which is a fee-based platform for people who maybe could do other things for online businesses. You can monetize a YouTube channel, you can become a social media manager, customer service representative, contact tracer for COVID. Different states are still looking for that. That's a service that is paying, and it will give you state credit. I believe in the different pensions. I know, at least for New York. Website developer, music editor, create and monetize a podcast. Dunkin' Donuts is still open, so is Starbucks. JustAnswer.com will pay you to answer questions. You can take online surveys, you can cut grass, you can clean pools. Like, I put this together in about 10 minutes. So if you're in a place where you're like, I need money, I need to figure out how to make money, getting creative, and just even doing, Jeremiah just put in the chat, an online search for who's hiring my area, what can I do, online jobs, taking action, you can definitely move forward to do that. And really enterprising artists during this time have been already finding ways to make money. So if that's a concern, you can move forward there. One note of caution: do not commit unemployment fraud. What does that mean? So if you are receiving unemployment insurance through the state, or pandemic pay through the federal government, and you take other work or get another job and still accept your unemployment pay, you're creating unemployment fraud, right? Because you're supposed to report your income, which may reduce or change the amount that you receive, depending. So I would say know your state's unemployment laws for where you are, because every state is different. Report your income if you are getting outside jobs or outside income. Weigh the pros and the cons. Some people are like, well, I'm not going to do anything until my 39 weeks are up, because I'm going to get this pandemic pay and then I'll worry about other money. But really, if there's an opportunity at your gate, you might want to look at it and say, would you make more money taking a job outside of your craft or outside of your field than you would with the pandemic pay? Some states, this is not universal, some states state that unemployment income, self-employment income shouldn't affect or shouldn't reduce your unemployment income. So if you do side jobs or cash jobs or something like that, and you don't report it, or even if you do report it, that it shouldn't reduce your benefit. But again, every state is different. Check your state's unemployment laws. Just do some digging around for your individual state. If you choose to continue to receive unemployment benefits, definitely know when that 39 weeks runs out, right? Because normal unemployment is 26 weeks, and then the CARES Act extended it by 13. So look at your statements, look at when you started receiving benefits, look at the calendar and say, okay, I did this with a client of mine, and we know definitively the third week in January is the last check. So we need to have a plan in place for what happens for the fourth week in January. So plan accordingly. Coming back to knowing your numbers, keeping organized, that's an important piece. Before we move on, questions for unemployment or worries about that, or how work could affect it. Because this is really important, and really the penalty for committing unemployment fraud could be a fine. You might have to pay back your unemployment that you received. It could be a penalty. I think most states you have to pay back the benefits plus a 20% penalty, or depending on how much you've received in unemployment insurance, it could be a felony and it could lead to jail time. Do you know anything about the $600 weekly increase? That's the pandemic pay. I believe the federal government is offering that like normal unemployment insurance, which again is 26 weeks plus 13. So that $600 is, hold on, my brain is telling me that maybe that's not right. Double check when the $600 runs out. It might be the fall. I don't know if anybody else has done that. Right, mid-July. Thank you. Sorry, my brain got stuck on the other thing. So yeah, so double check and make sure that you know when that's expiring. 600 the week expires 9/31. Thank you, Ryan. A total brain gap right there. So yeah, so make sure that you know when that is, and maybe now is a good time to start looking for how you're going to supplement that on the other end, or come August. Other questions about that? Okay. So creative expression, right? Coming back to what we need as artists during this time. I know I work with a lot of singers, and a lot of them have told me that they haven't been able to sing, or it took weeks for them to be able to sing after the pandemic started and all of their contracts canceled. Part was just, not having anything to work on because everything got canceled. Part was just, I think, heartbrokenness due to the circumstances around. I think when the weight of the world gets so heavy, sometimes people need to kind of go into themselves a little bit. But as artists, I'm sure you can identify with the fact that we feed our souls. We do what we do, not just for money or serving our communities, but it is integral to who we are. So I would encourage you, if you haven't already started, maybe you don't want to pick up your main gig. Maybe you don't want to get back to full-time work. But I think finding a creative outlet during this time can be very healing, and go along with figuring out ways to make money through this as well, right? So creative outlets, play. Just allow yourself to play. Just do stupid stuff and be silly and play. Read, not just on your phone, but pick up a book or a Kindle. Learn a new thing. If you're thinking about expanding your offerings or ways that you can work in different arenas, there's a lot of universities out there that are offering free online content. So if you think, I kind of want to start a blog, or I think I can serve my community by writing about my experience or whatever, there's 300 different courses you could take about how to do that. So maybe learn something new, or learn something completely unassociated with your work. Pick up meditation or whatever. Just follow your heart and pick up something new, and stretch. Experiment. Whatever your creative outlet is or your medium is, maybe try, the flip of that or a reverse of that, or play with what you do in a different way, and just allow yourself to kind of get loose and get into that creative space and experiment with new things. I was listening to there was a Netflix series on the nature of creativity. It's 50-minute. It's not documentary. It's a movie, but it's a neuroscientist who shares his research about the nature of creativity, and I think it's pretty much called The Nature of Creativity. It was fascinating because he interviewed one of the gentlemen, I think, who was a co-founder with Microsoft, and he's a serial experimenter. He just tries all these different things, and he's got all these different patents and enterprises, and he's a musician as well. And he was talking about the nature of creativity and experimentation, and how learning to experiment only feeds creativity, right? But it's a cycle, because you have to let yourself try and play and do new things. If you've been doing what you do the same way for so long, now might be the time that you have a break enough to play and try something new. Laugh. Find something that makes you laugh. Watch something funny or stupid, but laugh. Get dirty, play in the dirt, allow yourself to dance in the rain, like whatever, just feed your soul. Sing, dance, bake, create. Find what you need to do during this time. It doesn't all have to be productivity based or money based. But as we talk about moving through this, one thing to grapple with is the fact that there is no waiting this out. Things will reopen. Things will get back to some semblance of what they were, but our society and our world is invariably changed through this time. So if you're waiting for things to feel normal again, you might be waiting for a very long time. So find ways that you can create and emote and move through this into the reality, into creating the reality in the world that you want to create and exist in. So moving forward through a pandemic, I always come back to taking care of you first. Numero uno, whether it's figuring out how to handle your finances or your debt planning or your business planning, take care of you first. Everything else comes second. Play. I can't emphasize that enough. I'm going to paint it on a canvas and put it in my wall. I have 2 kids, so I'm playing a lot, but sometimes it's just nice to do something completely different. Plan. If you are somebody who thrives off structure and consistency and being able to do your to-do list and everything, plan. Plan through the pandemic. That's why I created this series. Evaluate your income sources. Get creative of where you can, it could be complementary to your primary service and work, or it could be completely adjacent to it, but evaluate the sources. Get creative on new ones. Find connection. We've been so starved, so many of us, in isolation for so long. Zoom is not real people, even though we're the same. I think I found after our first planning through a pandemic, I was completely drained in a way that I don't get when I teach live. And it's because I can't share all of your energy. I can see your beautiful faces, but I can't share your energy. So find connection in the way that you can, even if it's just a virtual happy hour or a socially distanced hangout, whatever. Connect with the people that you love. And then reach out for help if you need it. There are people out there who love you, who want you to succeed, and a ton of resources. Like I said, I created this in conjunction with the Artist Relief Tree, which has been a lifeline to many people. So there are resources out there to help you through this time. That's it. That's it for your homework. Love yourself and each other. The other 3 episodes have some concrete action steps that you can take through this time. Focusing on what you need to do to move through this, I think, is really important. And I would say, especially in the world that is so divisive right now, especially in the US, political, social justice, there's just so much. It's easy to feel heartsick. It's easy to get angry about all of this. And I think if you try to come from a heart-centered place and you love yourself and you care for yourself and you care for those around you and your community, we will all move through this. Questions? We're ending a little bit early, and I think that's okay. So that little guy is Rory. If you haven't been on the other ones, I've been including pictures of my cuties at the end because they're cute. And he turns 1 tomorrow, which is kind of cool. That is my email address, tiffany@tiffanysorcelli.com. The website for Virtuoso is virtuosoadvising.com. Like I said at the beginning, that there is a 15-minute strategy call if any of you are interested in. I created Virtuoso Advising for artists to be of service to artists. And honestly, if I can help you move forward by just taking 15 minutes and creating like 2 things, answer some rapid fire questions or whatever, and move you on your way, I'm here to help. I believe that the world needs creativity and beauty and art now more than ever. So whatever I can do to lift you up, the creators of such beauty and art, I would love to share that with. So now we're gonna answer questions. How do we get copies of the other sections? Jeremiah, go.
Oh my gosh, sorry, I had to unmute myself. Absolutely, we have all these videos available. I just posted that in the chat. So if you have any questions, DM me, put it in the chat, send an email to info@artistrelieftree.com.
Okay. You put my email.
Well, I did put your email in there, but yes, I'm sure if they ping you, you'll ping me.
I can do that, yes. Is considering another round of payments. Not sure if they'll be like this before. Do you know anything about this? So yeah, the Congress is talking about another round of stimulus checks. I know that different lobbying institutions are looking for additional funding for creative performers and nonprofit arts institutions. I don't know anything other than what's been reported in the news though. And honestly, I'm I'm trying to find a kind way to say
Don't
this.
bet on it.
I like to deal in fact, and so I don't count on it until it's here, because we've seen so many times with this administration and with our leadership that they'll say one thing and promise one thing, and then at the 11th hour they kill it. So, how much coaching costs through virtuoso advising, and what does coaching include? That's a good question. So, actually, on Monday, I'm announcing what the new coaching packages look like. I will say historically, again, I'm coming from a place of service. I've worked with artists based on where they are. And I have offered a bit of a sliding scale. So I do have fixed fee prices. I do $250 for a 90-minute strategy session, which is just kind of like a quick and dirty, let's look at everything, where you want, where you're going, business, professional, finances, right? You kind of articulate the goals, and then we create an action plan, like really, really quick. Then some people want more of like a 3-month thing, like we'll do a strategy session and then they want to stretch it out for 3 months, because just coming up with the ideas is step one, but then the implementation of this takes a little bit longer. And sometimes the accountability and the hand-holding holds you accountable to achieving what we set out to do. So all of that will be announced on Monday. So I'm going to tease you and say that that's coming. That being said, even though I've mentioned that there are fixed prices, when people reach out to me and they want to work with me and we get into finances and I'm looking at everything transparently, my job is to help them figure out a way or come up with something that's mutually beneficial. So perhaps I missed this in another talk. I'm unclear if I should apply for unemployment. I have some private students. I will start some online 1099 work with the Youth Symphony for the next 2 months. It is still less than you usually make due to cancellation. Should you apply? So the language around the PUA, or the pandemic pay, is that it is for self-employed people who have lost income due to the pandemic. It doesn't say you're fully unemployed, you've lost income due to the pandemic. So when you go, and it all of it could be about, I mean, if you apply for unemployment insurance, it's really based on have you paid into the system, what have you filed for before? It's individualized, Erin, but it doesn't hurt to apply. And definitely the pandemic pay is there to fill in the gap for lost income. So I would do a little bit of research for your state, and dig in a little bit. And there are people, if you can get them on the phone, who can help you and answer those questions. But yeah, every state is different. So lean in on that. Other questions? What are your takeaways? What has been the most impactful part of this session? It's a little bit different than the other ones. While you're writing your responses to the impact, Zoe's asking for SBA loan information. So you have to look and see if funding is all tapped out. You can go on the Small Business Association website to learn about creditors in your area or funders in your area. They have a pretty clear application process on their site that you can look at and say, like, do I qualify? Do I qualify? Do I qualify? Depending on how your work was, and depending on what your work is, and depending on how you were structured as a business entity, you may or may not qualify for that. Last I checked a couple of weeks ago, the SBA funding was tapped out for pandemic, except for agriculture businesses. It could have changed, but look into it and see if it might be something that would fit you. Aw, Carolyn, thank you. Community, somebody said that was a big takeaway for today. We're all in this together, and it's interesting how the more people you connect with from all different artistic backgrounds, we all kind of bleed the same blood. We're all looking for similar things through this time. So awesome. So Courtney said she really liked writing her why. That was what we did in episode 3 in our last session for business building. That's awesome. I'm glad that was helpful. Other questions? I'll keep this open for a couple more minutes, but if there's not active questions, I'll turn off the recording at least. I'm going to pause the recording. Nice to get the financial info target for artists. Glad, Aaron. All right.